Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome to Normal America Show. Happy to be here this morning. My alarm did not go off. This stream was supposed to start at 8 a.m., so I literally just woke up and was like, oh, shit. And here I am. So, sorry about that. We're going to do a call-in show today. I don't know how many people I'll have watching or how many people will call in. Normally, I'm an evening streamer, so, we'll see. But if not, we'll just shoot the breeze about all things election. We plan to go for about 2 hours. I got an exciting day lined up after this, which is why I'm streaming early. I believe we're taking the man and my son Hank to this hotel that's a couple hours away. It's just a little hotel that's got like a little swimming pool with some kids' water slides and stuff like that in it. So he's all excited for that. I am excited as well. This is the last day of my vacation, so we'll go do that, and then I'll come back tomorrow, and by 3 o'clock I could go back into work. So I'm enjoying my last day of vacation. I'm enjoying a Trump victory, a Republican victory. It's nice. I'm enjoying the left-wing streamers' tears. It's good stuff. I'm sleeping like a baby. It's all good stuff. It's all good. It's been a great week. Hit 10,000 subs on YouTube. That blowout Trump victory, Yeah, the copium Israel, man. It's one of those things. I think the pendulum's swinging on and look, I have to be clear. Like, I know I'm repeating myself. No tax on overtime would be huge for me. I work like 80 hours a week, so that would probably immediately garner me an extra $400 to $500 a week. Like, no bullshit. That's how much it would do for me. So let's hope that gets passed. It depends on the week. I probably average 70 hours a week. Thank you. Thanks for the congratulations. I appreciate it. I'm pouring a little salt in the wound of some of these left-wing streamers. I'll stop soon. It's just, like, they bring it on themselves, though, because not only were they so ridiculous going into the election, so confident, so cocky, and just, bad faith, so many of them, but it's like they refuse to learn the lesson. Like, I saw Pisco last night, so like, I'm not going to give up. I'm going to be a prick going after Trumpy-type people. Yeah, that works so well for you, man. That's, you know what the American people were thinking? You know what they were thinking? If only the Democrats would have been bigger pricks. I'm sure that would have put them over the edge, I feel. That was where they went wrong. It was like, so many of those, Latino men, the increase in black men. That's what they really. If only they would have called Trump Hitler one or two more times. Then I think, if they would have just focused a little more on Tony Hinchcliffe's joke, I think that would have been it, man. One more all caps post from Pisco, and literally this whole election swings. So I'm glad that the lessons being learned. Of course, you have the mainstream media that's out there like, it's racism, it's misogyny. That's the problem. We need more control over media. That's the problem. Disinformation. I'll be quite honest with you. You can believe me or not. For personal reasons, it's nice to be right. It's nice to, but I would rather the country do well. Like, I was vehemently against Joe Biden in 2020. I thought that he would be a disaster as president. I thought that his cognitive decline was obvious. But from the bottom of my heart, I hoped I was wrong. I really did. I would have wished that Joe Biden would have got in there, would have had a bunch of policies that were excellent, that the world would have been largely peaceful, that the border would have been secure, that everyone would be doing great economically. I would have happily been like, I'm glad I was wrong. I would have. So in that same vein, it would be nice to hypothetically have more than one party that actually was promoting some sensible positions. As it stands, most of my entire life, both the Republican and Democratic Party sucked. They didn't care about the average voter. I would rather have two parties that cared about the voter. Even if that means that one of those parties is advocating policy positions that I don't really agree with, it would be nice to at least have them, not screaming racism every time something doesn't go their way, calling all their opponents Hitler. That'd be nice. So deep down, I'm like, it would be okay if the Democratic Party was like, hey, we're going to focus on the working class again. We're going to try and have policies. And even if they're policies that I wouldn't agree with, at least be out there and be like, here's policies. We're going to speak directly to the working person. We're going to have policies that we think would be beneficial to them. I would actually enjoy that. But it's clear that there are large movements within the Democratic Party, whether it be the actual politicians or people around them, like the media, influencers, etc. They don't get it. They don't get it. So, whatever. I in one hand, you take joy in their stupidity, like, okay, double down then. That's cool. And on the other hand, you're like, what are you doing? It just... So, I don't know. I find amusement when I see, some of these claims that are going on. So, let's not waste any more time, though. One last thing I'll say. The video that Trump put out the other day, I won't play the video for you, but I will show the post of, the transcript. President Trump's plan to dismantle the deep state and return power to the American people. Here's my plan to dismantle the deep state and reclaim our democracy from Washington corruption once and for all. And corruption it is. First, I will immediately reissue my 2020 executive order restoring the president's authority to remove rogue bureaucrats, and I will wield that power aggressively. Excellent. That's one of the very first things that needs to happen. The problem is that our country is actually ran by bureaucrats that are unelected in the executive agencies. They mightily sabotaged Trump for 4 years while he was there, which means that any sort of agenda that he wanted to have would be near impossible. So being able to remove them is an important first step. Second, we will clean out all the corrupt actors at the national security and intelligence apparatus, and there are plenty of them. The departments and agencies that have been weaponized will be completely overhauled so that faceless bureaucrats will never again be able to target and prosecute conservatives, Christians, or the left's political enemies, which they do now at a level that many believe can't be possible. Excellent. That's exactly what needs to happen. The biggest threat to our country right now is our own intel agencies. I would completely disband the FBI. But aggressively going after the department and agencies and the people within them that have shown that they are willing to weaponize for political reasons and have a two-tiered system, that is the bare minimum of what needs to occur. It's one of the most important things that could occur. Third, we will totally reform FISA courts, which are so corrupt the judges seemingly do not care that they are lied to in warrant applications. So many judges have so many applications that they know were wrong, or at least must have known. They do nothing about it. They're lied to. Excellent. FISA is a total joke. The fact that it's basically a rubber stamp and it's used to go after people that basically are considered undesirables from the very intel agencies that have weaponized against movements such as Trump's movement. Absolutely fantastic plan. Fourth, to expose the hoaxes and abuses of power that have been tearing the country apart, we will establish a Truth and Reconciliation Commission to declassify and publish all documents on the deep state, spying, censorship, and corruption, and there are plenty of them. Excellent. Absolutely what needs to happen. The American people should see all of this stuff declassified to show just how corrupt these actors within the deep state have been. Should have happened immediately in 2017. I'm glad that Trump's suggesting that'll happen now. Fifth, we will launch a major crackdown on government leakers who collude with the fake news to deliberately weave false narratives and to subvert our government and our democracy. When possible, we will press criminal charges. Now, this is a double-edged sword. On one hand, yes, they should aggressively go after political actors that are leaking for the sole purposes of damaging a political narrative. However, this could also be used to go after like the Edward Snowdens of the world, people that are leaking and legitimate whistleblowers. So double-edged sword, but I think it's directionally correct that all these leaks we saw against Trump that constantly came from inside his own administration were designed to be nothing more than political attacks, and no one's ever held accountable. Sixth, we will make every inspector general's office independent and physically separated from the departments they oversee so they don't become protectors of the deep state. Makes sense. Should have been something that was done years ago by any president. You don't want the inspector general who's looking into the FBI to be part of the FBI, or else it may be too tempting or for them to become part of the FBI, or too difficult for them to be able to go after them because they're part of it. Seventh, I will ask Congress to establish an independent auditing system to continually monitor our intelligence agencies to ensure they are not spying on our citizens or running disinformation campaigns against the American people, or they're not spying on someone's campaign like they spied on mine. Absolutely excellent. The fact that our intel agents that are designed to protect us are used to spy on us as Americans, and we see that they've gone after political opponents they don't like. Remember, they wanted an insurance policy against Trump. They illegally spied in his campaign. Absolutely, there needs to be a system to audit to make sure they're not doing this. Eighth, we will continue the effort launched by the Trump administration to move parts of the sprawling federal bureaucracy to new locations outside of the Washington swamp. Just as I moved the Bureau of Land Management to Colorado, as many as 100,000 government positions can be moved out. And I mean immediately out of Washington to places filled with patriots who love America, and they really do love America. I don't know how much effect this will have, but it's not a move that I'm opposed to. I do think that getting all of this power source out of Washington, D.C., where you're surrounded by people that 94% vote for the Democratic Party, can't do much harm. So, yes, that's fine. But again, I don't know how much good it'll do. They should be shutting them down instead of moving them, most of them. But ninth, I will work to ban federal bureaucrats from taking jobs at companies they deal with and they regulate. So they deal with these companies and they regulate these companies, and then they want to take jobs from these companies. Doesn't work that way. Such a big public display cannot go, and it's taking place all the time, like with Big Pharma. Absolutely brilliant move. If you're regulating pharma, you shouldn't be able to quit and then go work for pharma. Finally, I will push a constitutional amendment to oppose term limits on members of Congress. This is how I shatter the deep state resort government that's controlled by the people for the people. Thank you very much. Term limits, there's arguments both ways, but largely I am in support of term limits, so I'm good with that as well. So it's like a wish list for me. Now, saying it's one thing, doing it's another, so we'll see what happens. But my goodness, one of the criticisms I had of Trump, and the reason that I supported Vivek over him, was Vivek was out there saying, like, we're going to cut 80% of federal employees. We're going to disband the FBI. And I was like, Trump hasn't learned his lesson. He's not out there saying the right things. He's saying, we're going to build the FBI, big, beautiful new building. Well, he's certainly saying the right things now. This isn't all exactly what I would do, but I think it's so directionally correct that I'm very impressed. And if he accomplishes even 50% of this, it will be markedly better than his first term. Toke, super chat for $10 says, $10 for 10K. Good idea for Trump to pardon Hunter. Sure. I don't really give a shit, to be honest. Let me talk about that in a second, then we'll get to calls. Lord of the Nerds for $5 says, all roidoids need to blacklist Destiny. He needs you guys more than you need him. It's the only sort of argument he recognizes, and he loves blacklist. You know, I don't know if I have it in me to blacklist people. There are a handful of people that I just don't want to interact with anymore. My standard is if it becomes something that's personally damaging to me, such as there was one particular trans streamer that when I talked to them, my channel got community strike after community strike, and my personal employer got like 6-7 phone calls. I won't interact with that person anymore. I haven't seen Destiny come to that yet. Zoodonym for $5 says, there's an establishment on the right as well, though. Yet on Piers Morgan, Dan Crenshaw tried to gaslight us to the there isn't. That's absolutely true as well. Absolutely. Crenshaw does suck. All right. Should Donald Trump pardon Hunter Biden? So for me, it's not about an individual politician. I never was big on lock Hillary up. I'm not big on lock Hunter up. I'm not even big on lock Joe Biden up. For me, the problem is the intel agencies themselves. That's the real villain. That's the real problem. The truth is, what's the biggest crime that Hunter Biden committed? Well, tax evasion. Okay, he should at least have to financially pay that back. I don't think he should be pardoned from that, the financial penalty. The criminal penalty, I don't know. The gun, buying the gun under influence, I mean, I honestly think that's pretty weak. I don't think that they would have went after someone as aggressively as they did if it wasn't a famous person like Biden. Now you might say, whoa, are you admitting that the DOJ aggressively went after Hunter because he's Hunter? No, I'm admitting that he committed other crimes that were obvious, such as FARA violations, and they didn't want to get him for that, so they had to take him down for anything, so that people like Connor that were like, this looks corrupt, could say, oh, it's all good now. They got him for a low-level crime. All good now. Would I mind? Would it be worth for Trump to pardon that? To illustrate, like, look, this isn't a petty tick-for-tat thing? Maybe. The FAR violation was the real crime, and honestly, my take on FAR violations is I don't particularly think that everyone should have the hammer brought down on them for FAR violations. The problem I have is that hammer has been brought down, but only on people associated with Trump. So if we're going to go after Paul Manafort, if we're going to go after Carter Page, if we're going to go after George Papadopoulos, then we're going to go after Hunter Biden for it. I'm more interested in actually holding accountable the bureaucrats that engage in these double standards that will exist long after Joe Biden's out of office, long after Hunter Biden's no longer a public figure. So should he pardon them? I don't know. I could see it either way. Destiny. Biden will probably pardon his son. I don't know. But, all right, let's put the link out. And then we already got a couple people lined up. We're only going to go till about 10:30. So depending on how many people jump in the queue, some calls may be longer than others. I don't mean anything by it. So I think I saw, I got to put my headset on. Come on, Rom. What you doing? All right. Let's first go with Common Hope. Can you hear me?
Hey, Rob. Can you hear me?
I can. How's it going this morning?
Fantastic. Fantastic. You know what you get on a morning show?
What's that?
Australians.
Oh, that is true. Yeah. See, wonderful. So what time is it for you?
It's 11:53 here.
Okay.
You were supposed to start at 11, but that's all right.
Well, yeah, apologies. I was a little late. The old alarm didn't go off, but always great to have Australians call in. I used to have a guy I did shows with. His name was Rational Wrongthink. He still pops in from time to time, but I shit you not, he kind of like moved to the bush, and he just like kind of like basically living off the land. So.
Yeah, well, that's the good life. That's what we all hope for down here.
Yeah. So what do you think? How's it going today? What's on your mind?
Oh, it's great. Actually, I wanted to start with a joke. Just because I saw it on Reddit, and I don't usually go to Reddit, but I thought I'd start with a joke.
Okay.
Because I'm actually a liberal, so I'll start with the icebreaker.
Okay.
So I read this. I can't. This is by Chad Forbes, and it says, "I was at Barnes and Noble earlier, and I asked the clerk if they had Donald Trump's new book on how to deport illegal immigrants. He immediately said to me, 'Get the fuck out of here and don't come back.' I said, 'Yes, that's the one. Do you have it in paperback?'"
That is very good. That's some dad joke humor there. I love it.
Oh, we love dad jokes. We got nothing but dad jokes down here. You get past the equator, and it's just dad jokes out.
There you go. Yeah. Yeah. So what'd you think? What's the feeling there with you and like other folks in Australia? Like pretty glum, or what are you thinking?
Well, the undercurrent here in Australia is sort of weird. It happened in 2016 too, where it's sort of like a sort of ambivalence about the US election, but also like there is an undercurrent here of like conservative thought that sort of really kept on simmer. So people are like, they don't care if you wear a Trump hat down here, but they're also like, it's not polite talk to talk about Donald Trump, if that makes sense.
No, absolutely. I think that it's similar in a lot of places around here. So, for example, I live in Pennsylvania, so there's two big cities basically in Pennsylvania. I have a lot of friends that live in Pittsburgh. It's about 2 hours away from me. And a lot of them they're not hardcore lefties, the group I'm talking about here. Some of them voted against Trump, some voted for. And the ones that voted for, a lot of them are like privately messaging me like, look, we are at our jobs, and it's like, you know that half the people there probably voted for Trump, but no one could speak up. It's just this undercurrent. And the people that voted against Trump are devastated, and they're speaking up. But the people that voted for him are all just quiet, like, okay. You know, and it is weird how that works. I think it has to do with sort of where our culture has been. And I don't know if it's the same in Australia, but here in the States, where culturally we were always told, like growing up, I was always told, like, you don't talk about politics, you don't talk about religion, like at the dinner table, right? But that's sort of changed. Yeah. It's okay to talk about it if you're on the culturally dominant side. And so culturally, it was perfectly fine to be like, Trump sucks, he's the worst, he's Hitler. And so if you weren't of that belief, you kind of had to bite your tongue. Now I think that you're seeing it more people saying, no, we don't have to put up with this anymore. Hopefully the result of this will be, after a little pushback, we go back to sort of having polite disagreements and people not treating you like you're some, evil maniac, and every HR meeting you have has to be, oh my God, we need to hug each other because Trump won or something like that. But definitely have a similar vibe here, what I've seen, at least in our cities. So
I think that's just about everywhere, but it's so strange in Australia because we're so politically because the two-part, we sort of have, like, we're basically two parties down here as well. We have different parties, but they form coalition governments and all that. So, but both parties are pretty much on the left. We have Labor and Liberal. Liberal is sort of the conservative, but not really. They're more left of your conservatives. I mean, way left now of your conservatives, way left of Trump. But I reckon down here, if you polled, or let me put it this way: if Australia became a state of America tomorrow, they would be deep red completely, with the only holdouts being the major cities, just like in the US elections.
Yeah, it's so strange that, I mean, strange isn't the right word. You understand why it occurs, but you wonder how a society could keep on like that, where it's like even if you see the maps here, and I'm sure you've seen it, where the country is just incredibly red, and then you could just look at a map of how places voted, counties voted, and you're able to be like city, like you absolutely know. And it's like, to have that sort of bifurcation between, a country, and you're saying it's similar in Australia, you wonder, like, in the long run, how it's possible to continue to coexist like that.
Well, it's just complete, like, political repression. Like I said, it's not polite company to talk about Trump, but everyone would vote for him, sort of thing. Like, it's a very strange world we live in.
And I think,
I don't know.
I think people, like, one of the things that people don't understand about Trump is it's not really about Trump. I think he represents a frustration, and I think it's a frustration you see around the world. You saw it with things like Brexit. You see sort of right-wing populist movements spreading up in countries like France, Germany, etc. There is a deep-seated frustration with leadership in both culture and politics around the world. And because that leadership has been in tandem, the culture and politics all going the same way with the people in control, there's not been a good vent for the people that are frustrated. And by that, I mean, there really hasn't been an avenue for them to voice their frustrations. And so I think what's happened is there's been this bubbling undercurrent where maybe people are silent. The pollsters talk about it here, the people trying to do polls. How do you get the Trump voter? Because so many of them, when you call them, they're like, I don't want to talk to you. And that's sort of the lesson we've learned. You can't talk about it publicly, but privately, so many people are like, yeah, I'm tired of this. And it's not that, like, oh, I love Trump necessarily, though there is a lot of that. It's, I'm tired of these people in control that have every advantage that I can't criticize publicly. Because they also are so involved in our culture, and it's deemed it's racist if you criticize them, or you're a bigoted, or you're uneducated. And I think that Trump signifies something in Brexit as well in 2016 that scared a lot of these leaders around the world. And I wouldn't be surprised if it's true of the leadership in Australia, where they started to see, like, this undercurrent's real, and we have to do something about it. And sadly, it seems like instead of something being like, let's listen to these people and see what we could do to help make their lives better. I think the answer's been, how can we shut these people up? How can we use social media to censor them? How can we, and for me, that's just exacerbated the problem. And that's how you end up with Trump 2024.
Yeah, well, you're exactly right. Just looking at your chat, Shara Kinks, Shara Kinks, completely right. We don't talk about politics in Australia. We know more about American policies. Like I could, I watched all your 24-hour stream. Fantastic.
Thank you.
Yeah, but you would never catch me watching anything down here about politics. It's just sort of, it's complete repression. There's pretty much no hope.
And here's the thing. As someone who's a populist first and foremost, right, to me, I've talked about this a lot. I feel that what's occurring is, for both nefarious and not as nefarious reason, they're trying to usher in the leadership of these places around the world, sort of globalization. And it makes sense, even if you look at it in the most baseline way that's not like super nefarious. Let's say you're Bill Gates. You don't want to have to deal with 100 different countries with 100 different laws, and you're greasing wheels of politicians in 100 different ways. You'd rather just have one sort of international body, and that's what's going to have the rules. And then it's easy for you to gain influence in that one body, and as a major corporate leader, you could do whatever you want. I think there's a lot of corporate sentiment like that, and then various other reasons, some more conspiratorial than others. So for me, that's what they want. They want to erode national boundaries, and they want to erode national identity and have more of this world citizen view, which I think is a huge mistake. And for me, I think they've been largely successful, except the big holdout is certain areas in the first world, particularly the United States, and people that are working class. And so for me, that's why so many of these policies make sense. Why do you want to open borders? Why did you want to lock down small business owners during the pandemic, but you allowed the big box stores to keep going? All of these things, it's like, oh, and then you could go even to a deeper level. You look at someone like Mike Benz that's talking specifically about the U.S. State Department and how they're pushing for censorship online, because the intel agencies in the United States used to use a free and open internet as one of their best tools to sort of have revolutions in countries they didn't like around the world. But then they found out, whoops, it turns out an open internet could lead to populism in our country, and they didn't like it. So you have all of this push going, and I have friends in the UK, the aforementioned person I know in Australia that's told me things similar to you. I do think that there are people around the world that are fed up with sort of that sort of stuff, these elites, and they can't really say much in their own country. And so there's a lot of looking towards the United States like, what's going to happen? It's almost the last domino that needs to fall. And the flip side of that is, if you could have an administration that successfully fights back against that sort of globalist mindset, maybe it starts to turn the tide in other countries like Canada, the UK, Australia. Now, I'm sure it's a long, long way away from it, but the tide's got to start to turn somewhere if you want to have hope. So I hope that even though if it's difficult to have a movement like that in Australia right now, that it's something that the ball will eventually start rolling a little more, and there could start to be some incremental changes.
Yeah, well, they always, you've probably never heard this, but they always say that Australia is like 10 years behind the US. We're basically a US state. So if it gets rolling at the time, when it happened in 2016, when Trump first came in, and it didn't start the ball right. It's hard to explain, but it did shift a little bit. It was sort of like Australia's sort of like, there was like our politics was like a still pool, and 2016 came along and the pebble rolled down the hill and hit the still pool, and there were ripples, and suddenly people started looking at each other sort of like, oh, the pool can move. You know what I mean? Like it's very, it's sort of like it's almost like as I'm saying it, it's like I live in Afghanistan or something. You know what I mean? Like everyone's looking at each other and afraid but it really is like that.
Well, it's a good point. And like, I think what's different this time is you could make the argument that 2016 was a flash in the pan. Right? Like, okay, it was a unique moment in time. You had Trump win. You had Brexit. That's okay. We've dealt with all of that. And then you see a lot of the Brexit movement lose in UK. Trump loses. And sort of the momentum against those movements was a harsh rebuttal. Trump specifically, we're going to go after him, lawfare, 37 felonies, everything we could think of, we're going to charge this guy with. We're going to go after his supporters. We're going to lock up all these January 6 people. And it just became the narrative in the United States that, like, these people are horrible people. It was an insurrection. It was a coup. We're going to use every propaganda tool in the world to go after them. And they still won. And I think that the signal that that sends, like, is it's not going anywhere. It wasn't a single flash in the pan. It wasn't, okay, you got your little movement for 4 years and now it's done. Now back to the way things are. I think that this time they used even more pressure to stop Trump from winning. And again, I can't stress this enough. It's not just Trump. I mean, for God's sakes, 2 assassination attempts. It's not just him. It's sort of what he represents. When you have people that are like sort of classically liberal, like RFK, Tulsi Gabbard, and then you have people like Elon Musk, who voted for Obama, Joe Rogan, who was a big Bernie guy. You have all these influential people that have sort of differing political beliefs, and they're all coming out saying, like, no, we need a movement like this. I think that hopefully can do more as a signal around the world than the first time, because you can't just write it off as, well, it's just one flash in the pan. It got defeated. Everything's done. So I'll give you the last word here, and then we're going to get some more callers, though I have really appreciated. By the way, you're not Jake Rattlesnake, are you? Who I
No. Actually, my name is Jake, but no, not.
Look at that. You could do the
not
now. This is probably bigoted on my part. Like it probably everyone that's listening from Australia right now is like, here we go. All us Australians sound the same, you know. But I just mean audio without seeing your face. You did sound a little like him. But
Oh, cool. Well, yeah, we all sound alike. Very racist. No, I just wanted to thank you, really, as a last word, I suppose. I really enjoyed that. Like, how I found you was through Destiny, obviously. Like all his videos get so much like airspace on YouTube. Like you can't click on anything politics without one of his things coming up. And then I found you, and I was like, well, this guy knows what he's talking about. But yeah, I just wanted it because I looked at all your election night. I had I had Tim Pool up. I had PPD, mostly for Dave Smith. I had TYT. I really enjoy TYT, but I had you, and then I ended up just turning all the others off because all those panels shit me so bad.
Yeah.
Like they hop everywhere, and you were the only one who was doing the house races. You were constantly, you knew as soon as states were called and all this, and I'm like, why am I watching these other panels? Like, I'm not getting any information. You know what I mean? Like, it sucks.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate it. And, I was worried about the election night cover. It's one of the things that there's things like that. I don't mind. I jumped on with Andrew Wilson. I jumped on with John Burke for a little while. But, I find it like the debate reviews. Oftentimes when I'm watching someone, I'm interested in like what's going on. So like, for example, a presidential debate. And you'll have these people that are streaming during it, and they're talking over the debaters. And I'm like, but I kind of wanted to hear what Trump and Kamala had to say. I didn't really care at this moment what a third person had to say. I feel the same with election night coverage. In the past, like I remember in 2016, 2018, when I wasn't streaming, I would have frustrations like that as well. It was like, it's more interested in sort of people's commentary and sort of having a party in many cases, as opposed to like I'm genuinely trying to figure out what's going on. So that's how I tried to carry the stream. I tried to not be a cheerleader and try to be as even-handed as possible, even though I know people knew it was obvious who I was cheering for. So I'm glad that at least one person saw value in it, and looking forward to doing it in every 2 years when we have these big elections. So.
No, you did fantastic, and yeah, I know you're going to sing me off in a sec, but yeah, it's just the fact that like all these panels and also the debates, you do shit me up the wall. Destiny sucks. He sucks so bad. Yep. Yeah, I just wanted to let you know that you're doing great things, and yeah, congratulations on the 10K.
Thank you.
And I'll definitely speak to you again.
Yeah.
And oh man, we could speak on Australia, because your thoughts on Australia is actually, I always thought that I've been listening to political commentators in the US for a long time. Like I said before, or I quoted someone in chat or whatever, we know more about US politics down here than our own politics. it's a funny state of affairs. But you could definitely, if you ever want to come down here, you could easily, pretty much every political speaker, could easily transplant down here and just start talking, and you would be spot on about everything, because everything in the US, I think, is the same here. All our rural areas are red, or what you would consider red. All our cities are blue, and everyone pretty much speaks the same way. I think you'd feel right at home down here.
That's awesome. Well, hey, thanks again. We do call-in shows. I try every Friday, but I would love to have you on just someday, just to talk like as just a pre-planned guest about Australia. I think it would be interesting, because I think that there's a lot of stuff that people, one of the things here is we don't know anything. In my rural Pennsylvania here, we don't know anything about countries around the world. So it's always nice to get like sort of some information on how things are looking in important countries. So
Yeah, important. That's a Imaginarium just said I'm getting sent to the COVID camps.
yeah. Hey, but I saw they had nice flower pots and stuff there. I saw.
Yeah, we actually had COVID camps. We actually.
Yeah, I remember, and it was crazy. I remember arguing with this guy who claimed he was from Australia that told me that it was all bullshit. I'm like, I'm watching like whatever, like the equivalent of Good Morning America on Australia. I'm like, here's the clip right here where they're like, actually, these camps are beautiful. And I'm like, this is the most Orwellian bullshit I've ever seen. And it's like showing these people like locked in these rooms, like, and it was all like, well, you got to take the vaccine or you're put in the camp. But the camps are beautiful, and you can make friends there. That's sort of what this clip was. It was like, look, there's people that are playing music in the COVID camp. I'm like, you've got to be shitting me. Like,
I even doubt that music was being played. The things that I saw, like, because I could go on for hours. I need to let you next caller call in, but like they had the social distancing in the actual, like, in the camps, so they could only talk. You could only go out onto your porch, and you could only talk from your porch. Like you couldn't even touch another person, or you know what I mean? Like it was.
That's unbelievable.
Anyway, yeah. Oh, dude. I'll come on. I'll talk about Australia. I'll talk about COVID. I am a liberal, though. Like I started with that. I actually didn't get to the liberal stuff I wanted to talk about. Actually, can I get one? Can I just get one topic from you?
Sure.
Just one US related topic.
Sure.
So I wanted to ask you about. I just saw. Hold on. Let me pull.
The next caller in queue's like, damn it. It's all right. We'll get to you. We'll get to everyone that's in the queue right now. And so
I think that's Tash. I talked to him very briefly. I apologize. So just wanted to talk to you about. So I saw this tweet. Harold Lutnick, Trump's transition team co-chair. This is a tweet, states that RFK Jr. is not getting the job for the Department of Health and Human Services. Lutnick also added that Elon Musk would help rather than take a formal role in the Trump White House. So what I just wanted to get you, and I'll leave with this. What's your opinion on, like, you said that just earlier that if you said 50% of the things Trump says that he wants to do gets done, that's good. I agree. Mate, it's looking like his appointees are going to be garbage again.
Well,
so what's your opinion on that?
Yeah.
And I'll leave it with that.
Okay, well, thank you very much. So to speak on this, I also saw pushback from other people inside Trump's camp that said that's not true, that this messaging wasn't true. I'll tell you straight up, if he screws RFK over, that's a huge black mark on him. And I will heavily criticize Trump. Now, I've criticized Trump many times in his first term. I will do so again. I think that strategically for politics, once you decide that there's a certain candidate or movement that you want to push, the way you go about it normally is during election season, you're willing to sort of go all in trying to help that side win. But as soon as they win, then you hold their feet to the fire. And I hope that Trump supporters learn that. Yep. He is someone who's not an ideologue. And right now he's someone who's going to like, oh, I'm willing to listen to the people around me, blah, blah, blah. He's going to have so many shitty people around him. And they're going to be trying to convince him to fall back into the same traps of the 2016 era. So I think it would be a devastating mistake, not just personally because I like RFK and think he would do great things with public health here, but also because it would signify that he is falling back into the exact same pieces of garbage. There, I said it. I didn't put an apostrophe like Biden, like they're trying to claim. Like these individuals that surrounded him, the Mike Pompeos, the John Boltons, etc. He cannot start listening to them. And so it would be a huge slap in the face to RFK, all the people that came out from RFK to support Trump, many of which may have helped him considerably at least in the popular vote count, and probably in some of these states where he narrowly won the state. So yeah, I would heavily criticize if RFK. Now the only caveat to that would be if for whatever reason RFK would be like, listen, I've decided to be in more of an advisory role. I didn't really want a position in the cabinet. Then I guess I'd be like, well, okay. I guess if RFK turned it down. But if he just straight up's like, hey, thanks for your help, RFK, now hit the bricks, I would think that would speak very ill of his character and ill of the fact that he has people around him that are not advising him in the best way. So,
Yeah. Can I just ask you one? I swear to God, 1 second. 1 second.
No, that's fine.
Would you, if RFK was forced out, and I think he's going to be, if RFK is going to be forced out by the people around Trump, his appointees and whatever, would you consider voting for RFK if he were a Democrat next time?
It would depend on what it would look like. But yes, I would. Right? I would anyways, whether he's forced out or not. And here would be the caveat. I really dislike a lot of his policies on energy and a lot of his policies on the Second Amendment, on guns. However, for me, as a single issue voter who's interested in going against corruption, for me, I'm willing to vote for someone who has more left-leaning policies than I like if I think that they sincerely are interested in fighting back against this institutional corruption. And I believe RFK is. So it would depend on who RFK is running against. If the presidential election would be RFK as a Democrat versus, say, J.D. Vance as a Republican, then I would, all things equal, I would go with Vance because his policies are going to be more aligned if I think they're both going to challenge sort of institutional corruption. But most Republicans, I would vote for RFK over. I would vote for RFK over Nikki Haley. I would vote for him over Jeb Bush. So it would depend on who he ran against. But certainly, if he gets kicked out, that would give me more impetus to say, listen, I guess it depends on how it looks. If RFK gets kicked out of Trump's administration, but then Trump does a great job of dismantling the FBI, I might say, I don't like that he screwed over RFK, but I'm not like rejecting MAGA or the MAGA movement totally over that one issue. So it would be very nuanced, but suffice it to say, I would be interested in possibly voting for RFK over most establishment Republican type people, and I would be very pissed off if he gets screwed over by the Trump administration here. I'm hoping that it doesn't happen. I think that my gut feeling tells me that if I don't know anything else, I know this, that Trump appreciates people that he sees as loyal to him. I think that he respects and is friends with RFK. And so I think that sort of stuff's usually more important to Trump than ideology. So I would be shocked if Trump completely burns that bridge with RFK. I think that it would be a big mistake, and I'm hoping it doesn't happen. But
yeah, can I? I'm going to throw a grenade in and I'm going to leave because I can see chat's angry at me. I don't trust Vivek. I think he's an empty suit. I don't like J.D. Vance for what he said about Trump. I don't think he's changed, and that's it.
We'll see. We'll see. I could talk at great length about those stuff, but we'll see. At least they're saying the right things now, which I think we've been bereft of leadership for so long that actually says the right things that I'm gullible. I'm willing to accept someone saying the right thing as opposed to say like Nikki Haley. That's so. But hey, thanks so much. Thanks so much, Common Hope, for calling in. Hopefully we'll talk to you soon, man.
Definitely, man. Thank you so much.
Right.
Bye-bye.
Take it easy. All right. Not every call is going to be that long, but that was a fun call. Next, we had Tash of Fools. Tash, what's happening?
Hey.
How you doing this great morning?
Doing pretty fantastic.
So I assume you're probably not one of these, like, Reddit type liberals that's crying every day because Trump won, if you're doing fantastic right now.
Not especially. I was a Bernie Sanders supporter in 2016, back before he kind of got screwed over in the primaries and kind of bent over to Hillary Clinton and the DNC establishment.
He's got to pay for that third lake house,
My main reason for supporting him was he was kind of against the war, unlike Hillary, who was trying to shoot down Russian jets who were bombing ISIS in Syria. And he was also, at the time, against illegal immigration. So when he kind of got pushed to the side, Trump was like kind of the obvious option. And then after he actually won, even though 99% chance that he was going to lose, he managed to still get in, and I gave him the chance, and I was just on the Trump train since then.
Yeah.
And
It's
kind of
amazing.
disappointed.
You know,
I
go ahead. I'll
think
leave you finish that thought. Sorry.
I think RFK did exactly what Bernie Sanders probably should have done in 2016.
Agreed.
Because I feel like obviously that strategy worked out, and it didn't really work out for Bernie.
Well, here's the thing. I've said this for years. If you go back to, say, Occupy Wall Street, you know, there was this huge bubbling wave of populism around 2008 in this country, and it manifested largely from the left. So you had a lot of these people that were sort of left-wingers that understood that our financial institutions were corrupt, and that because of the games they were playing, it started to screw over normal, everyday working Americans. And so you basically had these two movements that spurned up. It was the Tea Party and it was Occupy Wall Street. And they, if you looked at it in the surface level, it was like, well, they're diametrically opposed. But they weren't. They agreed on 95% of who they were identifying as the problem. They just disagreed in sort of the manner and how to approach that. You had the Tea Party people that were like, we need to massively slash the size of government. And you had the Occupy Wall Street people that were like, we need the government to aggressively go after these sort of corporate, you know, corrupt corporate entities. And it was amazing to me the skill in which our institutions caused such a separation within those two groups. And so for me, I saw a lot. I get shit for this. You have to understand. I ran for Congress as a Republican. I go to Republican meetings. I have Republican congressmen that come on my show. They don't like to hear me say something like this, but it's the God's honest truth. I would have voted for Bernie Sanders over Jeb Bush. Absolutely, without a doubt in my mind. Because Bernie,
He's a populist.
he struck me as someone who at least legitimately cared about the people of this country and felt
100%.
that the government wasn't listening to them. You're also right. I'm also sort of a Ron Paul Republican, so I was against most of these military interventions. And people don't remember this about the 2016 election. Hillary Clinton's suggested no-fly zone over Syria would literally have directly led to us being in a hot war with Russia.
With Russia, who is bombing ISIS. Exactly,
That's
100%.
right. And so it's not like today where it's like we're in this proxy war with Russia via Ukraine. This would have been literally our planes shooting their planes. And it would have probably
Which was not a good idea.
Right. And so, like, it was amazing to me to see how many Bernie supporters then, after Bernie got screwed over, jumped right on the Hillary train, the Democrat train, you know, right on down through it. And, you know, it's one of the most skilled propaganda victories in history, in my mind. That the people, I'm 40, so when I was in college, you know, I was this sort of, you know, libertarian adjacent Ron Paul. I hated the Iraq war. I thought what we were doing in Afghanistan, I didn't mind going after bin Laden. I'm not like a pacifist, but the idea that we were just sort of occupying Afghanistan, which would then end up being for like 20 years, like those were the types of shit that I was focused on. And that was the big issue for left-wingers in this country back then. If you're young, you might not know this, but Bush lied, people died, Cheney's a war criminal, right? The Iraq war, this great movement. You had all of these celebrities, all of these entertainers. You had, you know, people like Michael Moore that are doing these movies. There's this huge groundswell, sort of like a mini version of the protest against the Vietnam War that's swelling up against the Iraq war in this country. And so Obama gets ushered in, and he's supposed to be this new type of politician, and he basically just completely continues all of the foreign policy of George Bush. Like all of it. He famously gives this speech to the financial institutions where he's like, I'm the last thing between you and the pitchforks. And so everyone's like, oh, Obama, he's going to come in. He's this big left-wing populist. He's going to, you know, he's going to bring the hammer down on these financial institutions. He's going to end all
And then he
these wars.
betrayed everyone.
He betrayed them.
Unlike Trump.
That's right. And then what we were, unfortunately, part of it has to do with because the excitement around him being the first black president, which I get that. I really do. Like if you're black, that is a historic moment. I don't give a shit if you hate Obama. That's historic. It is. So part of it had to do with that. And part of it had to do with he was charismatic and he was at least paying lip service to causes of the left. But they basically just became the Bush administration. And I feel that Obama's been heavily running a lot of the things behind the scenes of the Biden administration. And it would have been
I
very
think that's
similar with
completely
Kamala.
accurate.
And so for someone like you, and I talked to many people like you that was like, where's my place? I supported Bernie. They screwed him over. I was the anti-war. You know, I'm truly sort of a true left-winger. Where the hell's my party? You know, and you see it in people like Jimmy Dore or people like Aaron Maté. And I think...
Or RFK,
right.
or JRE or like Elon Musk, all the people that are currently on the Trump train that just got left behind by the Democrats. And
It's
like when they say that Trump is going to destroy the democracy, what they really mean is Trump is going to destroy their corrupt bureaucracies. And even though like the small battle of the election is won, I feel like the real war like really like begins right now of like actually trying to take control of the reins and steer the ship in a different direction.
I completely agree. I did all these videos the night before the election of
No,
why.
I saw the 24-hour stream and all that stuff. I saw the you talking with Andrew and Alex Stein and hosting that little conversation
Yeah,
between them. I thought it was fantastic.
there's two
And I
characters.
just I have to ask a question.
Sure.
What do you think is the next moves of the left after they regroup from this recent loss? Given that they say the right is going to not do a peaceful transfer of power, and usually I feel like they're projecting and they double down on stuff. So I really don't 100% trust that, even though that's the lip service they're currently giving. And the given also the lengths that they're willing to do of having two like assassination attempts
Yep.
and who knows however many plots.
Right.
So I don't know.
So
I feel
I will
worried
answer.
about this next little bit.
Yeah, well, you're right to be. Like, I'll answer that, but I do briefly want to say this. I also did these videos. I did a stream where it was just like, give me any group you could think of, and I'll tell you why they should vote for Trump. Not just Trump, but the Trump ticket, like RFK. And one of the groups was progressives. And of course, this left wing streamer, Hutch, that I deal with. Thanks so much for the follow, too. I really appreciate it. I put the one out about progressive, and Hutch, who's this left wing streamer, is like, yeah, I don't think so. And of course, they got bigger audiences than me, so they ratio me on X, which I don't care about. But you had all these people that are supposedly claiming to be progressive that are like, this is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. It's not. And I think you illustrate exactly why it's not. Because in order for real progressive change to occur in this country, by the way, I would be against probably a lot of the progressive policies that you may cheer for that Bernie was advocating for. But as a precursor to even having a possibility of having real change, whether it be in a more libertarian way, progressive way, or anywhere in between, one of the stumbling blocks of that, or the things that most is an impediment to that, is the fact that our institutions are corrupt and they don't give a shit about the American people, and you don't have a voice. They screwed Bernie over. They screwed RFK over in this election, and they'll continue to screw over real people that would be real progressives that would challenge these institutions. They're going to constantly screw them over and sell progressives. You got to pinch your nose and vote for us because the other side's evil. So if you really want a
100%.
legitimate, like, progressive type, look what they're doing to Jill Stein. Kamala Harris literally put ads out that was like, Jill Stein's a Russian, a stooge of Vladimir Putin. It's like, what do you think's going to happen? Do you really think that someone like Bernie Sanders, that progressive people will be like, there's some policies I like. Do you really think that they're going to have a chance to get leadership in the Democratic Party? Of course not. Not unless there's some radical shift. And the best chance right now to have that radical shift is the coalition that Trump's built that hopefully dismantles brick by brick this institutional corruption. Then, possibly,
And then
4 years from
even
now,
if it doesn't like he's still going to be able to put in a replacement for Thomas and Alito. So whether he does that or not, he's still going to replace the Supreme Court and put in 5 justices, creating however many decades long like permanent effect of his legacy.
Yeah. So that's sort of my honest to goodness, but I'm not like, oh, I'm secretly against progressives and that's why I'm lying to them to vote for. I truly believe that voting for Trump, RFK, Tulsi Gabbard,
Is actually
Elon
in their
Musk
best interest.
was in their best
I completely
interest.
agree.
So now the transition, yeah, I mean, listen, I said this in the 2020 election. There were so many people that were confident that Trump was going to win. And I said, in my estimation, they literally used the pandemic to institute authoritarian measures that they knew would do things like collapse the economy. They basically were silent or cheered on riots that were occurring all across this country. If they're willing to do that to stop Trump from winning, what are they unwilling to do? If you just look at the first assassination attempt, if we look at it as generously as possible, it is a complete and total failure on the part of our government institutions to protect the former president and frontrunner for president and now president-elect. And what's really been done about it? Well, not much.
Not a whole lot.
We had one guy resign, or the lady resign, and then that's sort of been it. The media doesn't really care. And so you have to ask yourself, like, Did they really care about this? Of course, then we had a second assassination attempt. We had polling that suggested that 1/3 of Democrats thought it would have been better for the country had Trump been killed. And you could obviously see some of the hyperbolic rhetoric from people suggesting as much, that, Trump supporters have it coming, things of that nature. So what would they be unwilling to do? So let's put aside what some lunatic might do if they really think Trump's Hitler and all hope is lost. And there's this large possibility that an unhinged lunatic could do something, because they've been gaslit that Trump's Hitler, and they've been gaslit that the Supreme Court are just his Praetorian Guard that will let him do whatever he wants, including sending the Navy SEALs to assassinate anyone that disagrees with him. So put that aside, what some lunatic individual could do. I think what you're likely to see is you're going to see the intel agencies aggressively go after Trump like they did leading into the 2016 election. They're going to be spying on everyone around him. They're going to be taking notes in anything they tell him, then leaking to the press, and then using those leaks to the press as an excuse to start legitimate investigations of the people around Trump. You're going to see people like Mark Elias and these other people. You already see him starting in Pennsylvania, who's a lawyer that's does lawfare for the Democrats. They're going to start aggressively challenging in certain places the results of the election. They're going to start trying to find clever ways that they could use lawfare to go after Trump, pushing for impeachments to go after him even before he gets sworn in. There's going to be an all hands on deck right now. I guarantee it. The establishment people are having meetings like, what can we do to either prevent this guy from being sworn in, or more likely, once he gets sworn in, to sort of hamstring him so he's not able to make any significant changes. We're going to embroil him in scandal after scandal. You're going to hear more women that come out and say, 43 years ago, Donald Trump sexually assaulted me. Those women are going to get huge voices on mainstream media. You're going to see...
I heard he beat the shit out of 2 women.
Right. You're going to see attacks on people like Joe Rogan, attacks on people like RFK, attacks on people like Elon Musk. The lawfare against them might be hampered because Trump's going to take office, but you're going to see their names assassinated in public circles. So I look for someone like Joe Rogan. You're probably going to have a Russell Brand type moment where you're going to have people accuse him of heinous things behind the scene. And that's they're going to double down on that because they're going to be desperate. If they feel that Donald Trump and his administration may actually do something to take away their power, they're not going to go down quietly. And so, you could see things up to maybe they're like, well, we're not going to do a good job preventing terrorism if we see some sort of act of terrorism that might happen. I mean, this is dark, and I think people think that I'm a lunatic for thinking this, but I think the only thing Joe Biden did that really stood up to the establishment was the withdrawal of Afghanistan. I think he had it in his head, I'm going to get this shit done come hell or high water, and I don't think the establishment liked that. And so
and the way they carried it out showed that, because I feel like they tried to punish him for it.
Exactly what I was going to say. I wonder if they were like, you know what, we'll make this a shit show, and then say, see, we shouldn't have left. See, we told you. And so you have to wonder with things like that. And it sounds outlandish, Absolutely. But is it really? I mean, how many terror plots, Ron Paul used to keep a running list of this, how many terror plots that the FBI foils are actually terror plots that were created by the FBI? Like the Gretchen Whitmer shit.
Too many of them.
Right.
Too many of them. And some of the Islamic ones, like they find some like newly immigrated person and literally try to radicalize them and then give them a fake bomb to try to plant somewhere.
Yeah, that's absolutely
true. They're like, oh, we caught someone. We caught this terrorist that we radicalized.
The worst example...
And like pretended to be their friend.
Yep.
And like tried to convince them to do this thing for us, and then they listened, and so now we have this thing. Oh, we're justifying our funding.
It's, I'll let you go on this. I'll say this. The worst example of this is the Pam Geller one. Pam Geller was this woman that was upset after the Charlie Hebdo attacks and radical Islamic extremism. She would do these Draw Muhammad contests, which, okay, whatever. It's purposely being provocative. So she had one in Dallas, I think. And it was another situation where the FBI radicalized this guy to go to this event, and I'm not making this up. This is the honest truth. You could look this case up.
He pulled in behind the shooter. I remember it.
So like this shooter gets out and starts shooting, and the FBI was going to sweep in before he started shooting, but they helped him plan on being there. And the FBI agent's in a car behind the shooter and is shocked that he gets out and starts shooting, and the FBI just leaves. They're like, oh shit.
They're like, oh, I need to not be here.
And so they had to have the local police, thank goodness, I believe, took the guy down before anyone was killed, any innocent people were killed. But that just goes to show you sort of the insanity. So, yeah, I mean, look, two things right now. I'm certainly in a celebratory mood that Trump won so handedly. But
As you should be. It's amazing.
Just the beginning, right? He still needs to follow through with a lot of the promises. And don't underestimate how corrupt these institutions will be to maintain their power and what they'll do to stop Trump from being effective. So I think you're right to question it. I really do.
Thanks for taking my call. I really appreciate it. I just want to say shout out to the Hard Bastard on YouTube, Rumble, and all that stuff. He does really fantastic coverage as well, and he's shouted you out plenty of times as well.
He's a good guy. I'm going to get in touch with him and see if we could collaborate on something. But yeah,
that would be fantastic.
Yeah, he's a good guy.
He's a really cool dude.
He is. He really is. So, all right. Thanks so much.
Take care.
Yep. We're filling up. I didn't mean to move people out, but we are filling up here. I'm trying to go in order best I can. I believe this person was next. Of course, the way my thing's set up. So we have, it's just saying X. So if your name starts with an X, I'm talking to you.
Hey, how's it going?
There we go. What's that? I can't see your full name, so I apologize for that. I don't know what's going on.
It's Susan now, but yeah.
Oh, okay.
I'm usually hanging out.
Yeah. So how's it going today?
But I'm from Destiny's community.
Okay.
That's how I found you. So I lean left, but I'm a Texas lefty, so I'm hard anti-establishment.
Gotcha.
So I'm really irritated how they stiffed Bernie, and I disagree with the fact that Destiny is like, well, fuck Bernie too. It's like, dude, Bernie is like the savior of your party, and y'all don't want to acknowledge it.
Yeah, I mean, Destiny, in my estimation, is sort of an institutionalist. And so I think that he has a proclivity to defend the institutions and the establishment. And Bernie, you could understand then why he wouldn't want someone like Bernie, because Bernie is antithetical to that, or at least who Bernie claimed to have been in the 2016 election. And so it makes sense to me why sort of the corporatist establishment favoring Democrats don't want someone like that. It's very similar in the Republican Party, where you don't like the Mitt Romneys more than they dislike Hillary Clinton. They don't actually dislike Hillary Clinton. They don't actually dislike Joe Biden or Kamala Harris. They dislike Trump. They dislike the fact that there are people coming within their own party that are going to usurp their power and authority. So I think that you see a lot of that, not just with Destiny, but people in the Democratic Party that are furious that there are people that come up within that's why they hated RFK too. People that come up with the Democratic Party that actually espouse what many of the Democratic voters want. And you see this sort of, I don't want to say civil war, but you see this discussions somewhat going on right now with Democrats. Should we advocate for more progressive policies, or should it be less going forward? After we got this loss, okay, we're trying to review. Should we have tried to go more to the center with like the Liz Cheney, bringing them on stage? Or should we have embraced more of the like progressive policies, the Medicare for all, that sort of stuff that you would have saw someone like Bernie Sanders? So we'll see what direction it goes in. I would say that the establishment that the Democratic Party has been the face of, they're going to steer it in a direction that they think most likely allows them to entrench their power more and pay lip service to the causes of the left, but never actually do anything to help them.
So I guess my question to you would be, because I've racked my brain for like months, because I have right-wing family on my mother's side, and they're like, they drink the Kool-Aid when it comes to Trump, and they're like, any Democrat is corrupt, and there's no Democrat that's like worth saving, and the entire Democratic Party is like always going to be bad. And me, I'm just like, I don't see. It almost becomes a lesser of two evils argument, because I don't see Trump as a moral character or anything like that. And I don't know how far he would go to uproot the institutions. Like, yes, they're against him, but then I see things like him telling like the fossil fuel industry, like, give me billions of dollars and I got you guys with tax cuts and stuff like that. And it's like, it just seems like he's a pay for play kind of guy. And I don't know how far he would go to actually uproot the institutions. Versus like an RFK, where he's like saying he's going to go against the USDA and the FDA and all that shit and crack down on them, you know?
It's an excellent question and point, right? Because For example, let's say that just in general, at the most surface level, Trump runs on drain the swamp. Did he in his first term? Did he?
No.
He didn't. In fact, he oftentimes put people from the swamp in key positions in his administration, like John Bolton and Mike Pompeo. He may put Mike Pompeo again. Now, some things that I'll say. His like of the fossil fuel industry, I don't put that in the same category as sort of institutional power, such as sucking up to the military industrial complex, sucking up to the intel agencies, etc. I think that you could be against sort of what you see as what I would call the deep state, and the fossil fuel industry is just either a tangential part of that or not connected to that whatsoever. So hypothetically, I'll put it this way. Like, let's say Trump goes in and kicks down the doors this time. It's like, screw the FBI, screw the CIA, and it's doing all these things that I think would be the right thing to do on those. I don't think that it's mutually exclusive for him to also be like, but drill, baby, drill, and we want to support these fossil fuels. To me, supporting them isn't illustrative that he's not going to actually drain the swamp. However, having said that, there's certainly room for concern. Like, Mike Pompeo is around the campaign again, so is he going to find his way in? And I think you're directionally correct that I don't think that Trump's like a great ideologue. Like, someone who wants to truly slash the size of government and drain the swamp would be Ron Paul. But Ron Paul wants to do so because he has an ideology that he is steadfast in supporting. Trump's not really an ideologue. Yeah, Trump's more of a kind of going by his, shooting from the hip. He's more of a negotiator, a businessman. And I think I've said this many times about Trump. I would rather have someone that's an ideologue that's in a position of power. But Trump has a lot of skills that means that someone like Ron Paul would never be able to ascend to the presidency, but Trump can. Trump's independently wealthy. He is charismatic. He is an entertainer. He is a coalition builder. And all of these things have made him incredible. He was the right man at the right time to be a potential outsider, to be able to win. And it's like, you look at all of the things that fell in line for him to be able to win this second time. I mean, he's literally centimeters away from being dead. He turns his head at the right time. He lives. I mean, it's incredible when you think of all the things that led to us. Just any one little thing being different, and Trump's not here, in 2024. Or he's here, but he doesn't have a chance to win. Even up to and including picking Kamala Harris, installing her as his opponent, who was literally the worst possible person they could have replaced Joe Biden with. So all of these factors, I don't think that you would have seen an RFK, a Ron Paul that would have been able to win like Trump. But one of the things when you don't have an ideologue that you need to look at sort of, well, what's the upside of that? I think Trump is willing to listen to people. And that means if you're a Trump supporter, or even if you're not, if you're just a citizen of this country, if you could sort of appeal to him and like, listen, we think this is a good plan, he's more likely to listen to you than say like, an ideologue, like a Ron Paul's going to be like, no, we're ending the Fed. And it wouldn't matter at some point if a bunch of people were like, whoa, here's why we shouldn't end the Fed. He'd be like, that's what I ran on. That's what I got elected to do. I'm ending the Fed, period. End of story. So there are advantages to that. And I would hope that sort of this time Trump understands that he shouldn't surround himself with people that are telling him, no, play nice with the swamp, that he should actually go against it. I hope that he continues to listen to people like RFK, listen to people like Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy, that we need to cut the federal workforce, all of these institutions. And so I'm hopeful, but it's only the beginning. The other thing you said that I want to address is the idea that you had family that think that all Democrats are shit. So there's two things to say. At the national level, I sort of agree in this sense. At the surface level, I agree. I think that I wouldn't vote for a national level Democrat at this point because to me, they literally represent being a complete and total cutout for the establishment. And I can't support that, right? However, that's certainly not true of individuals. Like, I have friends that are Democrats that are great people. And I've also voted Democrat from time to time, very rarely, but in my local elections. Because Democrats around here, they're not like getting paid by Big Pharma. They're regular folks. They just have slight disagreements and, they might think that, hey, we should have a little more property taxes, but let's have these cool new programs, to help the youth out. That's a far cry from like what you see at the national level with the Democratic Party. So, I hope that there's a realignment within the Democratic Party, that you have fresh blood that comes in at the national level that's willing to say, like, listen, we're going to focus on working class people. We're going to stop calling everyone we hate racist. We're going to stop, with all this, like, the more excesses of a lot of this woke ideology. And we're going to stop listening to sort of the big institutional interests that tell us, no, we can't actually work for the American people. We have to be the public face of, the FBI, the CIA, Big Pharma, and all those places. So, to your parents, I would say, be careful. Your parents probably didn't like it when Hillary Clinton called half of MAGA voters deplorable. They probably didn't like it when Joe Biden said they were garbage. So you don't want to make that same mistake. Most people vote for people for some reason. We talk about, I work in home health care with people with disabilities. One of the things we talk about a lot is when someone's acting up or they have behaviors. Most behaviors are it's some attempt at communication, and there's a reason for that behavior occurring. The same's true of how people vote. You might not like it, but someone may vote because I voted Democrat because Taylor Swift told me to. That's a reason. It's a bad reason in my point, but it's a reason. And to just swear those people off as like, well, you're all the worst. You're terrible. You're irredeemable. I think it's a huge mistake. So looking at the politicians is one thing. Saying at the national level, their Democratic Party is irredeemable. I don't think it's irredeemable. I think in its current function, I wouldn't support any national level Democrats. There's some I like more than others. But don't make that mistake of thinking that that's true of everyone on down through, including voters, because then you became the very thing that that you're trying to fight against, in my estimation.
Yeah, it's not my mom's.
Oh, you're breaking up on me there.
Say something. When oh, sorry, I'm a truck driver, so I might be in a bad area. But I was saying that it's typically my outer family, like aunts and uncles and stuff like that. My mom, she's not political. But she'll come to me with like a story that my aunts or uncles give to her that's like Republican, and I'll have to be like, okay, this is right, but this is wrong, And I feel like this election was a statement against political correctness.
Yeah.
And like I have tons of friends who are MAGA supporters and like Trump or whatever, or I have some that are like, fuck the institutions, like the government's all corrupt. Like, and so I agree with the fuck the institutions, the government's all corrupt. I just don't think that Trump was the answer to solve it.
Mm-hmm. No, it's a fair criticism. We'll see. I hope you're wrong. I hope that Trump does great, but you are absolutely... Listen, if you followed me during the primaries, I was supporting Vivek, and then I was supporting DeSantis over Trump because I thought... I didn't know that Trump learned his lesson and would actually do significant efforts to drain the swamp this time. Now, the statement that Trump just put out yesterday is absolutely fantastic. Talk about reforming FISA. Talk about, like, removing a bunch of people in these intel agents that, have gone after the American people in so many ways. That's great. That's the sort of stuff he needs to do. But saying it's one thing. Doing it's another thing. So we'll see. I have no problem with people that want to be skeptical of promises made by any politician, let alone Donald Trump. I think that it's a healthy thing to do. In fact, I think it's a huge mistake to just say, I'm with this person or I believe them 100%. You shouldn't do that. So I have no problem with that. And, I'll just say to close out here, and then we'll get to the next caller. We'll give you one final word. But, for me, I don't know if I'm unique. I hope not. I think there's a lot of people out there like me. I've always liked arguing. That's why I did debate in college. Even before I was in debate in college, I liked arguing. I have friends that I argue with about dumb shit like sports and stuff all the time. It's not a bad thing to argue. It doesn't mean you hate someone, you don't want them to do well, etc. And because of that, I have many, many friends that are adamant Democrats. Like some kind of radically so. But it's okay. I'm trying not to lose personal relationships because of this. Everyone's mileage will differ, but for me, it's possible to say, I think that you are voting for a party that is significantly harming our country, but I think you're a good person. I just disagree with your rationale and why you're supporting these people. Now, if someone says, I'm voting for this person because I want to personally throw you in prison, of course, you're not going to be friends with them. But if they say, I think you're wrong at the corruption of these institutions and, that's different. I don't look at that person with animosity. So, my advice is that works for me is I try not to lose personal relationships over politics. And when I'm debating these people online, so much of my audience is like, why would you ever talk to this person? I hate this person. They're the worst. How could you be friendly with them? And, my answer is, I don't know. It's just who I am. I like to try to see the best in people. I'll razz them, I'll rib them, I'll tell them when I think they're shit, I'll make fun of them, but I'm not like personally cheering for them to fail. And so when it comes to sort of our politics as general and as a country, I absolutely could look at some of my left-wing friends and say, I see where you're coming from. Even if I disagree, I see, and I'm not going to shit on you. And I think that as a politician or as someone who's trying to help specific politicians win, that's the mindset that most helps you win. That you shouldn't treat with contempt, particularly the voters. It's like being a car salesman. You might not like the guy that comes to your lot to buy the car, but you're not gonna shove them out the door. You're still trying to sell that car. And so I think people make a mistake of. I told this in 2019 when I ran for Congress here in Pennsylvania. AOC had just been elected, and all these people I was talking to were like, all these young people that voted AOC, they're so stupid. I can't stand them. They're ruining the country. And I was like, yeah, don't say that. And they're like, why? I'm like, don't you want those people to vote for you? Did you like it when you were called deplorable? Of course you didn't. So why would you think calling the voters stupid or terrible? Why do you think that's a good idea? You shouldn't do that. You should say, okay, well, why are you making this decision? And actually, there's a lot of good reasons to vote for AOC. For example, you could have thought, I'm someone who's on the left that feels like the Democratic Party's become too corporatist, too establishment, and so I want a radical change. And AOC's charismatic, and she's connecting to young people, and she's putting through a message of hope. Things will be different. I'm from your generation. I'll be concerned about your values. I'm outside the current system. Those are all good reasons that a person could have to vote for. So you might dislike her, and it's okay to insult her as the politician, but I would be hesitant to be like, oh, all these young people did this. They're all so stupid. And, all you have to do is take a quick moment and go, how would you feel if the other side did that to you? Would you ever consider voting for them? So that's where I come from on sort of that mentality. I'll give you the last word, and then we'll get to the next caller, though.
When you get a chance, I don't know if you've made a video on it before or spoken about it before, but I'd love to hear your idea of what the future is going to look like for technology and climate change, because I feel like there's this strain of the Republican Party. I guess that's just like with the whole conservative movement, is they don't want change. They don't want to lose their jobs to automation. But I don't see the future is going to come regardless. And you have Elon Musk now joining with Trump, and he's put millions of dollars in Trump's pocket and helped him win. And it's like, what makes you think he's not going to favor Elon when he's building robots to take your jobs and automation and the EVs? It's coming. I don't know how much longer you'll have a holdout before we just wind up losing all those jobs.
I will happily do. I could happily do a video on this. I'll just say, as we let you go here, I'll just say this. I think that there's a difference between the natural cycle of things occurring that happens in a gradual. The same's true of immigration, right? Or not even immigration, demographic shifts, right? So we've heard for years, white people are afraid that they'll no longer be the majority. And when you hear this, blah, blah, blah. There's one thing for a gradual phase out through natural things that are occurring. It's another thing to be like, we're just going to import millions upon millions of people from a different culture and implant them, right? It leads to two vastly different reactions. So I think you're right. There's always people that will be upset if they feel that their industry or their way of life is going to change. But it's one thing for it to happen slowly and gradually. It's another thing for the government to be like Joe Biden said, we're going to put the fossil fuel industry out of business. That's completely different. And you can see the animosity that people have. They're not being treated with respect. Like coal mining, for example, which there's a lot of that sort of shit, or people that work on oil fields and stuff like that. I have friends that do that work. That's tough fucking work. It really is.
Yes.
And a lot of these people, even if it pays pretty well for this sort of area, for that type of job, there's a lot of health problems that happen with people with that going down the road. And the way that we treat, that the National Democratic Party has treated those people like shit. And I've seen it. I've seen my one friend that works in oil fields, he has a lot of friends in our social group that are very left wing. And when they find out that he works in the fossil fuel industry, they treat him like shit. Like he's the enemy. Like you're killing the world. And so you could understand why these people are like, nah, fuck all that. Like we're not going to support that. We think we like our way of life, and so it's one thing to treat those people with respect and saying, "Wow, you really helped us out. Your job's very important. Energy is very important, particularly for the poorest and working class that need access to cheap energy, and it's really made our way of life possible. And in fact, not only that, it's made a potential for changing to different energy sources possible. Because if we were all struggling to get by and couldn't afford to eat and couldn't have cheap energy, we would never be able to come to this high-minded societal issue of, oh, and let's do more to save the earth. So, I also think that there is going to be a place for fossil fuels even as we have a gradual transition, but that's just a short answer to that. But yeah, I'll happily talk about that later. Zudum, thanks so much for calling in. Careful driving. Respect truck drivers, man. So thanks so much for what you do, and hopefully we talk soon.
Hey, have a good day.
All right. I'm trying my best here. I know I screwed up the order of people, so please forgive me. And I'm sorry that I'm cutting some of these calls short, but I do have a hard cutoff time of 10:30, and we have 4 more people in the chat. So, let's go with Black Jaden, who I believe I've talked to before. Black Jaden, you there?
Good morning.
Good morning. How you doing this fine morning?
Good. Can you hear me okay?
Yep. You sound good.
Awesome. So, did you wake up and smell just a little bit more freedom in the air?
My alarm didn't go off, so I woke up and felt panic because I was like, shit, I told people I'd be on at 8 o'clock. But yeah, I told people last night, my wife's already she voted for Trump, and she's a Trump supporter. Though she's got a lot of personal foibles with Trump, but she's, as many people, tired of sort of our institutions. But I think she's regretting her vote now because for the past 3 days, like anytime she asks me to do something, she'll be like, can you take the garbage out? And I'll be like, I don't have to do shit. It's Trump's America. And she's like, God damn it. So maybe I've been smelling a little too much freedom in the air. I'm going to get knocked down a peg here by the wife if I don't calm myself down. But yeah, it's glorious. 10,000 subs I reached. Magnificent Trump victory. Republicans winning. It looks like we're going to have all 3 branches. So, and then Trump's statement last night, which I'm actually most excited about, suggesting dismantling many key aspects of the deep state. So, smelling good to me.
Yeah, I've been ecstatic for the past 3 days. My wife's probably getting tired of me talking about politics.
Yeah.
I guess we'll start off right there where you just said. Do you think that Trump will follow through with his administration on all these things that he's promising and posting over the past 24 hours?
So there's 2 ways to look at this. Will he try and will he be able? And I think those are 2 different questions. Will he try? I hope. Now listen, there are things that are different this time than last time. One, if you, to me, the best part of Trump's interview with Joe Rogan was when he was talking about he flew with these generals to like some trip where they were going on the ground to discuss how to attack ISIS. And you could see his admiration, not for the generals, which he was talking up, but for the pilots. And to me, most signified the importance of that interview was that it humanizes Trump and it lets you see who he really is. He actually cares about those people, and that sort of transitions to blue collar people. But the most interesting thing that sort of gave you an eyesight into what Trump was dealing with, Joe Rogan's right to be like, listen, no one really talks about this, but you're this businessman that's never been involved in politics, and all of a sudden your first political win is you're president of the United States. What's day one like? Is there part of you that's like, oh shit, have I bitten off more than I could chew? And Trump's sort of, giving sort of canned answers, but he starts to give you some insight where he's like, look, I dealt with New York. I knew all these people in New York, but I didn't know them that well in D.C. And all of a sudden there's 10,000 positions that you have to fill. So I'm kind of just like trusting people. I have this handful of people, 3 or 4 people, and they're like, we'll take care of it. But he doesn't really know. And so he's trusting people like your John Boltons, like your Mike Pompeos, and then they're making all of these decisions. And I don't know that he was ready for that. This time, he's at least got some idea. And at least at the surface level, he's surrounded himself by people that are at least saying the right things and seem different. People like J.D. Vance, people like Vivek, people like Elon Musk, RFK, Tulsi Gabbard. They're talking about bringing in someone like Ron Paul. Like, that's a much better sign that he might do something differently this time. We shall see. We'll see what happens, but I'm more optimistic for that reason, that I think he is a better idea and he's put better people around, and maybe he's a little pissed off this time around. Maybe because of the way he was screwed over by so many of these institutions that he's like, nah, I'm not going to listen to you all of a sudden blow smoke up my ass like you did the first 4 years when you had people like James Comey that were publicly telling him, oh, no, we're not investigating you. No, it's fine. Well, Comey's taking secret notes, leaking it to the press, and using the FBI to go after him in every way possible. So maybe he's learned his lesson that people are going to blow smoke up his ass and he shouldn't trust them. So that's another reason to be hopeful. And he certainly came out. One of the first messages he's given since he's been the president-elect is this video he put out where he's like, here's how we're going to go after the deep state. So he's saying the right things and saying that he will prioritize this stuff. So I hope that that's something that he does. Will he be able to? That's a more difficult question. They're not going to go down without a fight. These institutions that have so much control, they will use lawfare, they will use their positions of power to fight back in every way possible. They still have media apparatus that, thank goodness, people are trusting less and less, but still unfortunately control so much of our narrative. It's going to be, look, it's not even going to be that long. Remember, after he won, you had a week or two in 2016 where it was all sunshine and rainbows, and then became the Russia collusion hoax. Right? They were already priming it before he won, but it really started to take off. And so we're only a week or two away from what's it going to be? What's the first attack going to be? And so we'll see. The other thing is, though, both in his willingness to go after them and his effectiveness to be able to do so, he does have a mandate this time. He won the popular vote. He won every state in this country, save one, has become more right-wing and went more from Trump than they did in 2020. So at this point, there is an ability. I think he has skilled people around him, if he listens to them, that know what to do to fight back against these institutions. I think he's more prepared. He's saying the right things. So I'm cautiously optimistic. My gut tells me that the swamp is so big. Well, this is certainly true. It's so big that you're not going to dismantle it in one term. It's not going to happen. But hopefully we could take crucial steps to start turning the tide. My gut tells me, though, it's going to be very difficult to do, but I'm trying to remain optimistic about it.
Right. Yeah. Hopefully Trump and his, the people around him will get in there, fire these staffers and all these other people who support, the corruption and really hard behind the footwork of a lot of it. So hopefully he can get those people cleared out. And I guess that kind of leads into my next question is, you mentioned a couple of things that they're already preparing, attacks against Trump. I saw that Eric Swalwell had posted that he's going to use, every last second to fight and start, moving the gears for probably, who knows, they're probably going to try to impeach him day one at this point. Mm-hmm. But I mean, what do you think about all the top Democrats already preaching that they're going to initiate in more lawfare, which they've already been doing for the past 8 years anyways, before, during, and after Trump's presidency?
Well, there's no doubt if this wouldn't have been as much of a landslide as it was, the first thing you would have seen was Jamie Raskin would have came out and said, we're going to use lawfare to stop Trump. We don't think he should be allowed to be on the ballot because Section 3 of the 14th Amendment. I think they realize now that they made January 6th such a huge part of their strategy, and it fell so flat on its face that they run the risk, if they double down on it, that people are just going to be like, holy shit. So I think that maybe we'll see. Raskin may do that, but I think that now he's going to be more hesitant. Yeah, I mean, have the Democrats learned their lesson? We don't know. Again, it's still early, but that seems to be their gut reaction. Look, when you're a hammer, everything you see is a nail. All they know how to do is shout racism, use every institutional benefit to go after their opponents. That's all they know how to do. They feel like, listen to how they talk about Joe Rogan, the contempt. Like, they're like, oh, it's not fair. We need our own Joe Rogan. Well, you had your own Joe Rogan. His name was Joe Rogan. He was a Bernie bro. And you've been so ridiculous that you drove him to Trump. Hell, I don't even think Rogan would have endorsed Trump if Kamala Harris would have went on his show. But she didn't. So it's like you have no one to blame but yourself. But they control so much of our traditional mainstream media, almost the entirety of academia, almost the entirety of the entertainment industry, and they control pretty much every social media company was at least in the past was willing to listen to what they said, other than X. And they're still like, that's not enough. That's not fair. And I talked about this when Elon bought Esk. They were pissed, not because they thought that Elon would do to them what they did to conservatives, like kick Trump off the platform and all that shit. They were pissed that they would no longer be able to do that. They feel that only having 95% control over our institutions is not fair. And it's not fair to them because they deserve 100% control. So it's not fair that someone like Joe Rogan allowed Trump and JD Vance to come on. That's not fair to them. We need our own Joe Rogan. We need to censor disinformation online. And it's the same with lawfare. That's all they know. They don't have a message that resonates with average Americans. They don't. And so all they could do is attack, and use every institutional advantage to go after their opponents. And it's worked to this point to some degree, to varying degrees, because they've had such uniform control over so many of these institutions. But cracks are starting to show. They no longer have total control over social media. They no longer have total control over sort of the narrative when you see people like Joe Rogan and X coming up. Even the entertainment industry, you're starting to see cracks. They don't have total control over sort of the lawfare and stuff if Trump gets into office and he decides to remove a bunch of these people. So yeah, I'm not surprised that their initial feeling in lashing out is double down. Let's just keep doing it, except even worse. You know, you see people like Pisco. That's what he said. It's time to be prick and get Trumpy, and we need to point people to use lawyers that'll be willing to go after him and blah, blah, blah. Right. Go for it. If that's going to be your strategy going forward, the American people have spoke up. I think that they've shown that they're tired of it. But yeah, I'm not surprised at all that they haven't learned their lesson. I'll give you the final word here, and then we got to get to the next caller because I only got 25 minutes left. So,
Okay, this is kind of an important question.
Sure.
I'm a new parent. I have twins, 2 girls.
Okay.
They're about to turn 3 months old next week.
Ooh,
You know, I don't
congrats.
have to worry. I don't have to worry about, you know, them being involved in degenerate activities, to say the least. So, but what do you say to conservative parents with older daughters who have to kind of navigate around the feelings of their daughters during a time where they might feel a little bit disenfranchised, especially with kids being chronically online? And if you look on Twitter, you can see all kinds of crazy stuff that conservatives are already saying. People need to chill out just a little bit. But I guess just what do you say to people with daughters trying to navigate these feelings?
Yeah. So even if so much of this is surrounding abortion. I think that it's obviously been hyperbolic of what's going on with the abortion conversations. One, Trump's just going to leave it up to the states. It's not going to be these radical stories that you're hearing that, you know, your daughter goes in for some normal health care and the doctors are afraid to help her because of the removal of Roe v. Wade. That's hyperbolic. But I understand people feeling that way. And I think what you're suggesting is something that goes further than that there's a pendulum switch. I think that men have been disenfranchised in many ways in this country because they've been viewed as the oppressor. And so culturally and politically for years, men have been a punching bag. Men's rights issues have been something that's been laughed at. And there are many significant men's rights that are worth talking about, such as rights, custody rights, other things that occur through traditional like court hearings and just sort of the issues that men are focused on being laughed at. And now you see a pendulum switch. And unfortunately, anytime a pendulum moves, you're going to see it go too far the other direction. So someone that I really respect, like Andrew Wilson, you know, the Crucible, they're all about remove the 19th Amendment. Women shouldn't have the right to vote. That could be frustrating if you're a woman and you see something like that. Like, well, you know, maybe I too, like every man that voted for Trump, I say, look, these institutions are going too far. They don't care about the working class people. But then the other side, they're going to be like, but we don't think you should have the right to vote. And to that, I would say, I don't think that those are the prominent voices in the sort of movement of the MAGA movement or of where republicanism's going. I think that most people still respect women. And I think even those people, it's not a disrespect of women when you hear, like, listen to Andrew Wilson or Rachel Wilson talk. They just have a disagreement. What they're talking about is, if you could really get to the fundamental values of what Andrew and Rachel are talking about, and a lot of these other people, they're saying that women have been sold a bill of goods by our culture, that basically they were told things that traditionally most women really enjoyed, such as being mothers, in the important structure of the family unit, and women arguably being the most important role of that, of being the center pin for how the family unit, and the family unit is the most important unit in this country. And that's sort of been denigrated by our culture to where it's sneered at now for women that want to be mothers and want to be, you know, stay at home and want to be excellent wives. Now we're told, oh, you got to get out in the workforce. And it's been told that so much that now we have an economy where many people struggle to get by, many families, if both the mother and the father aren't working. And so what I would say is it's not as bad as people think. Yes, you might see your red pill, your Andrew Tates or whatever, but that's sort of just this terminally online culture. I think that what you're seeing is a slight shift in a good way back to sort of the dignity of womanhood, right? The idea that you're not just sexual organs, that you're actually someone that should be valued, and that sort of the cultural values that are being represented by conservatism are things that most women will end up thinking is a far better, situation for them to be in. And the numbers don't lie. We can see so much of the radical feminist movement that you see that women's happiness has gone down precipitously almost every year. And it's because all of the pressure that's put on, not just, look, no one's suggesting if you want to work that a woman shouldn't be able to work or that women can't be skilled. Well, some people say, but they're full of it, that women can't be skilled leaders or skilled workers and all sorts of varying professions. But what's being suggested is that the other side's gone too far. So I get it, though. I get that the feeling's real, because when you tune in and you see Oprah saying, oh my God, women, we're all doomed, and all of these other celebrities, it can be easy to get blackpilled. But to me, the most important thing will always be the family unit. You as a father, if you have daughters, to let them know that you're being an example, that you respect them, and that you think that things aren't going to go this devastating way that all these people being hyperbolic are suggesting, and set a good example and have good people around you and your family so that there's a community of people that surrounds your daughters, that they understand that things are actually getting much better for all people, including women in this country. And it's just grotesque fear-mongering that suggests otherwise. So, but hey, thanks for the question. I really appreciate it. And congratulations on being a new father. Twins, I don't know. God bless you, man, because sometimes I feel like my hands are full with just one infant and now toddlers. So good luck to you. I'm sure
twins are not for the faint of heart, but I wouldn't trade them for nothing. I love those little stinky things.
Greatest thing that'll ever happen, being a parent. So congratulations to you, and hopefully we talk again soon.
Yep. Thanks, Rob. Have a good day.
Take it easy. All right. Next we got the Cloak of Shadow. What's happening, Cloak? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, man. Can you hear me?
I hear you. Thanks for calling in.
No, I appreciate it. Yeah, no, I'm also a father, too, of a daughter, so she's 6 years old, so I understand the
Awesome.
the craziness that comes with that.
Yep.
I got to get going, too, at 10:30, so I'm going to be quick about this.
Okay.
Here's my main question for you. So the majority of the media today, right, it's just an arm of the Democratic Party. They toe the line. They push propaganda, MSNBC, CNN, CBS, the list goes on and on, right?
Mm-hmm.
After a certain point of straightening the credibility, Trump's correctly labeled them as fake news. My main question is this: how much further do you think can the media push their credibility until there's just a flat out rebuke of them? And then how much are there possible repercussions that can be done to mainstream media so they're held to account? Because as it stands, from what I've seen so far, this can't be maintained for much further. It's gotten so bad that they think that we're forming the new Third Reich, and it's just at this point it's gotten crazy.
Okay, so first, what retribution could be offered? I don't mind when you're talking about sort of the network news that have this sweetheart deal where they get free access as sort of a public commodity to the network. I don't mind revoking that sort of free access, and that wouldn't be CNN or anything like that. That I'm talking about like ABC, CBS, because they're clearly propagandists at this point, and they're not a utility for the public good. I'm also in favor of removing funding for organizations like NPR, which once more show that the stated purpose of, it's for the public benefit, so we fund this sort of stuff, isn't true. It is for the benefit of the establishment to be propagandists. However, I would hesitate to go further with that through legal means. If CNN wants to destroy their credibility and lie, or MSNBC, fine, do it. I don't think that we should have governmental punishment for those people for lying, just like I'm against sort of a war on disinformation when it comes to people on social media or for streamers or for podcasters. So I don't want to see legal ramifications for places like CNN or anything like that. I think that they should be welcome to go to the airwaves and spew any sort of bullshit that they want, and that it is our right as the consumer to say, we think you have no credibility, you suck. How much further will they go? Oh, here's one thing I would do, though, that is some sort of retribution. If I was Trump's team, I would tell every one of these organizations that showed themselves just to be propagandists, CBS, ABC, the New York Times, CNN, I would be like, you're not going to be in our press polls. Sorry. We'll bring in small local news outlets. We'll bring in podcasters. We'll bring in people that are challenging to us, but we're not going to bring in propagandists. Kiss our ass. So when you have your press
one thing that I've been seeing. Yeah, that's the main thing I've been seeing. Is it's all of it's nowadays just propaganda. I mean, so the thing is like reformations of potential like Section 230 protections, because I feel like it's just far too lenient for bad actors. I know that we don't want to go too far into it because we don't want to be labeled as saying, oh, we're trying to break down on free speech. I don't want that to happen. But I'd rather just say like full on label. Hey, CNN propagandist. Hey, CBS propagandist. MSNBC far left propagandist. And I'd rather just be said. I mean,
Yes,
take for
yes,
example
that's-
Daily Wire. They're
that's-
far right. Well, I'll say far right. They're conservative. They push conservative ideals. They don't claim to be objective. That's my.
Yeah, and I think that's fine. I think the Trump administration should call them out, right? But legal ramifications would be something that I think would be too far. Now, how much further will they go? I mean, it depends. I think some of the smarter and front thinking of them, like Jeff Bezos, I think you could see the writing on the wall there that he's like, the Washington Post is going to cease to exist credibility-wise. It's going to hemorrhage sort of viewership in the long run, and eventually they're going to lose all access. Because here's the thing. So much of the traditional legacy media and mainstream media, they rely on sort of a symbiotic relationship with the people that really have power in this country. So, for example, if you're the New York Times, you're actually, instead of holding truth to power to an organization like the CIA, you're actually in a symbiotic relationship with the CIA because they'll feed you scraps that you could then use so that you're the front story out there, you're the first person out there reporting it, as long as you do things that are beneficial to them, right? And so that's the exact antithesis of what the press should be. The press should be, no. We are here to hold the powerful organizations accountable so that the people without power, the average person, can have some sort of idea of what's going on. And so how much more ridiculous can they get? I mean, there's no bottom to what they could do. I mean, just look at how more hyperbolic they became. The Madison Square Garden rally was a Nazi rally. Why? Well, because in the 30s, there was a Nazi rally at Madison Square Garden. Of course, you could point to, like, I think Clinton, FDR had a rally there. Jimmy Carter had a rally there. None of them were Nazi rallies, though. Tony Hinchcliffe's joke, you saw how ridiculous they got with that. Trump's comment on the automotive industry being a bloodbath if Kamala won. That you saw what they did on that. Liz Cheney being executed. So their credibility, this is things that it's one thing to report like falsely on job numbers that the average person can't see. It's another thing to just tell blatant bullshit. Oh, Trump said that he wants there to be a bloodbath if he loses and blah, blah, blah. That's not what he said. He said the automotive industry would suffer a bloodbath. And people are picking up on that, and you could see that they're becoming less and less trustworthy. So the media, they could go one of two directions, I guess. They could double down, which is probably what most of them will do, right? And try to say, well, just like in 2016, our viewership went up because there's so many Reddit-type left-wingers that are bawling right now that they want their comfort food. So they want to tune into Rachel Maddow and hear her say, one time Trump parked his boat next to a guy who went to Russia for vacation one time, and so therefore, so they could double down with that. Or they could say, holy shit, if Trump really starts, people are tired of our bullshit, we no longer have the effects that we used to, and because we lost this election, there's not going to be these attempts to censor social media, and they might try to dismantle some of these institutions, and we might lose our access. So now's the time to switch gears and hopefully gain the respect back more of people that think that we've gone too far. I would say the former is more likely to be the case. They're going to just keep doubling down. They're going to double down until they're in complete and total irrelevancy.
Yeah, I had a feeling on that. It makes sense. Eventually, they're going to lose their access. They're going to lose the popular stance from the. I guess they've already basically lost because Trump won the popular vote now. So
yep.
I mean, hopefully we can see a slight change in that. But anyway, I got to get going. Appreciate you. Take care of yourself.
Thanks so much, man. Really appreciate it. All right, we got 3 more. If you're not in by now, we probably won't get you in. So next we have PeaceCraft. It's always good to talk to. What's happening, PeaceCraft? Can you hear me?
What's going on? No, let me mute your Twitch stream really quick.
No problem.
My critique of the Trump administration is really the installation of RFK as this new health minister, right? Going to the direct tweet. God damn, fucking music. One second.
It's all right.
Going to the direct tweet that RFK made on his perhaps future appointment is this. He accused the FDA, he accused the agency of aggressive suppression of psychedelics, peptides, stem cells, raw milk, hyperbaric therapies, chelating compounds, ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, vitamins, clean food, sunshine, exercise, nutraceuticals, and anything else that advances human health and can't be patented by pharma. If you work for the FDA and are part of this corrupt system, I have two messages for you. One, preserve your records. Two, pack your bags. Okay.
Okay.
Now the problem with this is that some of these are fine. Some of these are fine. Others are complete bullshit. Okay.
Psychedelics.
Yeah, so psychedelics is I don't know if you were saying that one was fine or complete bullshit.
That's what you're gonna.
But
Right. I knew that was one that you would point out. Yeah.
yeah, psychedelics have had some very good studies recently in helping with veterans suffering PTSD is getting over their PTSD. Stuff is such as psilocybin or even ketamine, even though I don't know if ketamine's that's a little early, but they've been experimenting with those substances in order to treat mental health disorders, and they seem to be doing relatively well. Okay, I'm going to be absolutely fine with lab and doctors testing these things to find out their efficacy because they've shown promise so far. But with other things that he mentioned, such as, and here's where maybe some of your community is gonna be upset. Raw milk is just bad. Like there's this crunchy alternative health hippie organic kind of slightly, like when you dig in deep into some of these influencers, like almost fascistic, like focus on just like raw milk. And every piece of data that I've seen on raw milk is that, like, yeah, pasteurization is actually good. Louis Pasteur Louis Pasteur invented pasteurization for a reason. And no, like for instance in your chat, Gendrick Bender, brother, I'm sorry. If you look at PubMed, if you pull up any study on raw milk you want, they make the claim that some taste is lost because some fat is burnt off during the pasteurization process, but all nutrients are kept. All the nutrients are kept.
So I do
You're
have
just wrong.
I have a hard cutoff at 10:30. This is a lengthy conversation. Let me say
I
this.
know. Let me pull out a couple more. Okay, ivermectin, same thing. But the key thing here is nutraceuticals. That is a term that Alex Jones developed for the selling of his supplement process. And when Alex Jones supplements were tested, they had like 300% fucking lead in them, right? Again, when we talk about installing members into the administrative state or the deep state, right? I don't have any problems with experimentation, but RFK seems to be a fucking idiot. And that we can't point to a vast conspiracy of the FDA doing everything they can to make people sick because it makes them money, and yes, we will turn them into the fat pod people. American obesity and health can largely be described by the fact that we don't move that much, we eat too much food, and if you did want to point to a regulation, it's probably high fructose corn syrup. Right? It's not the fact that the FDA is keeping fucking vitamins, clean foods, sunshine, and exercise away from us. It's that Americans are keeping those things away from themselves by not fucking doing them. Right?
Okay, so there's a lot to say here. I'm going to have to be brief, but I'd be happy to have this conversation with you longer at some point. As to the specifics of some of these things, such as studies on raw milk, I've seen studies that go the other way, but let's say that I would concede for the sake of this argument that maybe raw milk is sort of a danger. Nutraceuticals, have to look in specifically if that's all encompassing. I'm sure that anything within this, there could be bad things within those substratas, but is it that they're limiting any sort of this sort of stuff to occur? I don't know. In general, though, I'll say this. I do know a little more about the raw milk. As someone who has more of a libertarian bent, I would rather that people be informed of possible risks of purchases, but be allowed to purchase things, even if it's considered detrimental to their health. I think that our government goes too far in picking winners and losers and suggesting there are some things you could take and some things that you can't. Specifically on raw milk, my interest in this is seeing in Pennsylvania, not just Amish, but other sort of farmers that I've seen that have been heavily cracked down upon, lost their entire livelihood because of things like this. Let's say that me and 4 of my neighbors decide to go in and purchase a cow, but we don't have a farm. So the local farmer's like, sure, man, you could, you buy the cow, you give me the feed, I'll take care of your cow. And then what we get out of it is we say, oh, when you milk the cow, we would all like to receive that milk. Like, there are times when those sorts of things are made illegal because we're told we don't have the ability to consume that raw milk in that sort of fashion, even if we are aware of the risks and we still think that it's something we should do. And you can find footage of them going after, like, through interstate commerce and other things. Some Amish farmer sells a milk bottle for $5 to someone who lives a county away. It just happens to be across state line. And all of a sudden, the FDA is kicking in their doors, upsetting their entire livelihood because of these sort of things. So that's the sort of control. In general, I do think that the FDA, like much of these other organizations, even if it starts off with a noble purpose, what happens is they're able to be influenced as well, and they end up pointing to things being illegal or allowing other things to be legal that otherwise wouldn't have been in the best interest of the people. You know, one instance that I could think of, it's a little bit conspiratorial, is the drug aspartame. Or I don't know if drug's the right word, but aspartame, you know, was originally said by the by the Surgeon General, I believe, to be outlawed because it caused cancer. Aspartame is what you see in a lot of your diet sodas. Donald Rumsfeld's company owned sort of the rights to aspartame or something to that effect, and they got rid of the Surgeon General, brought in a new one, and one of the first acts was, yeah, aspartame's cool. Now, regardless of how legitimate that story is, I guarantee there's a million other things that went around it, but you could see the potential for abuse. And there's certainly something wrong with the health of this country, high fructose corn syrup being one of them, our vaccine schedules and how many vaccines we take compared to European countries, which seem to have better health, particularly for young people, seems to be another thing worth looking into. So I would rather the pendulum swing a little too far to someone who's going to be a little more of a wild card that will at least rein in some of the excesses of these institutions than have it the other way. So I'm for RFK getting appointed there, even if there's some batshit crazy things that he believes. I think that that's better than the status quo where we just sort of have people to get along. I'll give you the last word real briefly, and I got 2 more callers to get to in 4 minutes, so keep it brief if you can.
Yeah. You're never gonna hear me go against experimentation and
Sure.
the scientific method to discover mechanisms that rule our reality. You're never gonna hear me go against that. But if your hypothesis is based on a faulty premise, that is where you are in error. And when it comes to American health, I'm going to drive back to the point in comparing ourselves to Japan or Europe. These people walk more, average about, like, I'm going to guess 5 miles a day more. They ride bicycles. They eat smaller portion sizes. Asian people don't tend to go to the gym, but gym's only about 30% of it. Diet's about 70% of it. But no, the thing driving American obesity is Americans. It's the fact that they'll Uber Eats McDonald's rather than cook. It's the fact that their portion sizes are incorrect. It is the individual, for the conservative, for the libertarian, for the individual that wishes others to exercise autonomy over their lives and not rely on the government to do it. It is Americans that have put themselves into the situation, barring a couple things like high fructose corn syrup, which I would like to see banned and regulated.
All right, man. Well, thanks. I would be happy to talk to you more about this or whatever later, but I always enjoy talking to you. So I'm not trying to be a jerk. I gotta go. I got some stuff.
It's okay. Not a problem, Rob.
Thanks so much, PeaceCraft. We'll talk soon.
Peace.
All right, we got 2 more real quick. Let's go with Binks. Binks, we got you real quick. I gotta be out in like 5 minutes. What's happening?
That's fine. I just had something I wanted to say real quick. Anyway,
Sure.
Look, as someone who's been watching Twitch Bowl since 2021 and has seen countless panels of you going on and having all these smug liberals that tell you that your worldview is wrong and you're antiquated and all this is, you're just living in the past. I hope you soak up all the liberal tears today. So I was, you were one of the first people I thought about after Trump won, because after all that, after years of being in the mines, doing all the grunt work, and having all these people's predictions and models just completely fail the day of the election, it's just it's nice to see,
I thank you so. I'm glad you noticed it. It is exactly how I feel, and I know. Look, I put a poll up on my YouTube and was like, should I be magnanimous or should I pour salt in the wounds? And understand it, right? Like, I know I've been pouring a little salt, but I feel like deep down, you have no idea how much I just want to be like, just do a stream of 8 hours, just maniacally laughing, bringing up clip after clip of the past 4 years. That's really what that's what my gut's telling me to do. So I'm trying to be measured. I really am. Yeah. I'm trying to understand that there are people that are really hurt, and I'm not trying to be too much of a prick. But yeah, I'm glad you noticed. I've been dealing with some of the most insane people on these panels going back from before 2020, and it's sort of cathartic to be vindicated, like you were saying, that how many times that I've tried to tell people, and I talked about this a little on the show last night. I tried to tell, even this election cycle, I tried to tell people, like, what are you doing? What are you focused on? People can't afford groceries. People are tired of like the crazy bullshit that you're peddling, and they all laugh at me. Okay, so I'm glad you noticed. I'm glad you thought.
I noticed. I just want to see I see you. So that's all I got.
Thanks, Mix. I really appreciate it. Real quick before we get to our last caller, which we'll get to you in a second here, I wanted to read 2 super chats. One, Common Hope. Thanks so much for becoming a member. I really appreciate it. And lastly, Brock Van Wagner for $20 says, we on the right need our time to gloat, but eventually we need to remember how many on the right acted when Obama and Biden won, and a show of compassion. The world didn't end with them, and it won't end now. That's exactly right. And again, I'm trying to separate sort of the people that I view as contemporaries that are like streamers and stuff like that with the average person. I know a lot of average people that are hurt significantly right now, and I'm not trying to be a dick to them. And their feelings are valid because they've believed what they were told, that Trump's this Hitlerian type figure, and they literally think that it's the end of the free world. So I'm trying my best to sort of talk those people off a ledge that, I don't think that's the case. So great advice, Brock. All right. Alley Cat, what's happening?
Hey, what's up? I'm just here to sit there and celebrate the fact that even with Trump just getting elected, not even being in office, he's already impacting worldwide and global change. Right? You've heard about this, right?
Yeah, the Houthis came out and said that they were going to stop Russia, Ukraine, both. Hamas.
Hamas. Even Zelensky is looking for peace.
Yep.
Right? And when he sat there and did that. So it's like the guy doesn't even take the job yet and already he's created world peace. What's up with that?
Well, we'll see. It's one thing for those groups to come out and say that. It's another thing to see if it goes through. Certainly we've heard the Houthis and Hamas suggest that they were going to end attacks previously, and it didn't really come to fruition. But I do think there's a lot of truth in what you're saying. I think that Trump's foreign policy, if a sort of peace through strength, is something that's been underestimated. If you remember in 2016, one of the central attacks against Donald Trump was, well, look, maybe he'd be a smart businessman, but my goodness, hey, thanks so much, Cutter. I appreciate the follow. My goodness, this man will know nothing about foreign policy. The world will be on fire. And it was sort of the opposite. And they're puzzled. Like, it's amazing to me to listen to these people that are supposed experts or that claim to be more experts than me, because what am I? I'm just some hillbilly. Like, what do I know? But, like, to me, it totally makes sense. It's like, yeah, he pays lip service to these strongmen type leaders, and then he has policies that's detrimental to them, but he knows he can appeal to their ego. And then the people that are our allies, he's harder on, because he's like, you need to do more. And it works. And the unpredictable nature of him, it's like, I don't know a metaphor that you could use, but, it's similar to the guy at the bar that no one fucks with. He doesn't fight very often, but if he fights, you're going to have to, like, call the police to drag him off you, because he's going to beat you until, like, that's sort of, I think, one of the world impression to our enemies with Trump, where it's like, look, he's going to try to negotiate with you. He'll try to give you a fair shake. He's not going to say, oh, you're an evil leader, and so therefore we'll never we don't negotiate with these people. You remember he talked to Kim Jong-un, and I saw many on the left were like, he talked to Kim Jong-un without any preconditions. Yeah, so great, right? Like, and I think that they understand that. Like, this guy's, if you're Kim Jong-un, if you're Putin, you're like, this guy's willing to hear us. He'll listen. But if we get out of line, he's unhinged enough that it might just be like, if we push him over that line, that's it. It's not going to be some, screwing around. If we go to war with you, we're going to totally eliminate you. That's it. And if you put that persona out there, maybe it makes the world more peaceful, because you juxtapose that to someone like an Obama or someone like a Biden, where it's like their core belief is like the United States is evil. They're bad. We owe you money, Iran. It's our fault when this stuff happens, which ironically, they're sort of right, but it's not the people of the United States. It's the damn intel institutions that they then listen to and tell us we have to trust. But that's another discussion. With Trump, I think that there's pride in the United States, and there's this sort of unpredictable nature of peace through strength. And, we'll see how much it comes out. But my gosh, I mentioned this last night doing my winners and losers segment. One of the groups that's in between's Ukraine, because in one, maybe we're going to see the financial spigot be tightened and they're not going to get all this money. But what a victory it would be if this war ends for the Ukrainian people. That's as big as of a victory as you'll get if you're the people of Ukraine. So I'm hopeful that you're right. And I do think that you're initially seeing, right now, you're seeing that sort of signaling. Look, all of these places around the world are like, yeah, we're going to like try to be peaceful now because daddy's home. And it's like, oh shit, we got to get our affairs in order. Dad's been out of town on vacation for 4 years, but now he's coming back. Hurry up and clean the room up before he gets here. And then, like, I do think that some of that's occurring. It's not, again, I want to stress, because if all of a sudden Hamas attacks again 2 weeks from now, and people are like, oh, Rob said it was over. I'm not saying it's over. It's easy for them to say this, but they're saying it for a reason, because they understand, oh shit, like when Trump comes in, things might be different.
Well, the real politic is that, like, that's what the follow-up stories are going, is that you're probably not going to see from Hamas, like, ceasefire arrangements until after after January 20th. So again, but I mean, I guess what's kind of nice is just the whole idea that Trump looks like he's already fulfilling his campaign promises to like end the wars within a couple weeks type thing. You know what I mean? It's like, that's what's pretty amazing about all this, as far as I'm concerned.
And he was mocked. People mocked him when he said it. And then look, you're already seeing signals that direction. So, hey, thanks so much, Alley Cat. I hate to let you go, but I do. We got an exciting day planned with the little guy today, so I got to start getting ready. Got to get a shower, brush my teeth, and then we're going to hopefully be out the door by 11. So I do have to get moving here.
All right.
Thanks
good time.
so much, man. Yep.
Have a good one.
Yep, we'll talk to you soon. All right.
Bye.
What a bunch of awesome call-ins today. Everyone was very interesting. I love doing the call-in show. We're going to try to keep that going every Friday. Maybe as the channel grows, we'll have to limit that to members only or people that are donating only, just because I feel it's unfair. The first person that calls in, comment, he gets a big chunk of time. And then as I'm looking, I'm like, oh shit, there's 6 people left in the queue and I only have a 2-hour show. So maybe we'll have to have some sort of limiting principle in some way. Now, at this point, it wouldn't matter because almost I saw Ranger, I saw you were calling in, so apologies I didn't get to your call before you left the queue there, but always enjoy talking to Ranger as well. What to look for me, I'm going to be putting short videos up every day. Might miss a day or two on the weekend, but those videos are going to be going up every day. So if you're watching on any platform, the place that you're going to be able to find those the most are on YouTube. So I encourage you to go over there to YouTube. I'm going to try to do live stream. It's difficult for me to do live streams on the weekends and on Mondays and Tuesday, but you're going to see me live streaming with consistency every Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. We're going to try to do a lot of stuff, getting guests. I got some ideas for shows that are coming down to the future. We're going to do debate review shows that maybe won't be live, but we're going to take 20-minute sections of a debate, and I'm going to spend an hour reviewing it. So that's something that you're going to see coming in. And that might be debates like Andrew Wilson debates someone, or Destiny debates someone, or Vosh debates someone, or it might be like a presidential debate, or sort of, the debates you see in Oxford. So I think it'll be interesting as someone who judge debate, coach debate, and does debate to get my takes on that. So we got things like that coming down the pipe. And of course, I got to come up with the idea for my 10,000 sub show, the celebration that we're going to do. So I'm going to start putting some polls up on YouTube, asking for suggestions on what we should do to celebrate getting to 10,000 subs, but there definitely will be a special show for that that's coming down the pipe. So thank you. And there's not going to be a hot tub stream, I assure you of that. So thank you so much, everyone. I really appreciate it. Let's raid someone on Twitch. Also, special thanks to, was it Robert Whaley that last night tried to help me out by sending me a video of how to raid people on YouTube. I still don't know how to do that exactly, and also I don't see anyone on YouTube right now that I would want to raid, but I'm gonna figure that out. So we're gonna test that out. Twitch, on the other hand, my brother is on, so we're gonna raid him. My brother, great guy, Jojo Geeker. He doesn't really do politics much. He's more of a game streamer. I think that one of the things that makes him stand out is he doesn't have a big community, but he really, really, really likes interacting with his community, as opposed to a lot of these streamers you see that do gaming, and they're just kind of like, well, we're playing the game, that's it. So consider checking out, enjoy this raid, if I did it right, yeah. And maybe you'll consider giving him a follow. I think he's interesting. To the rest of you, thanks so much. I really appreciate all of you. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Suck it in. Trump's America's back, baby. Ah, what a fantastic week. What a fantastic week. Thank you all so much. I'm going to have a great day with my family now. We'll see you next time. As always, have a good one.